Hello, everyone. I am so excited to join you today for a special bonus episode for Homeschool Conversations. We are joined today by SD Smith, Sam Smith, and Zach Franzen. I'm sure they do not need any introduction, but if you are a Green Ember fan, of course, you're going to recognize the names of your favorite author and illustrator, and they are here today to chat with us all about stories and some new exciting news. And in fact, before we get to the questions I have for them, I just have to be frank and let you guys know I have no chill. I am the person who will pause a movie if it gets stressful, and I'll make everybody wait while I go look up the ending on Wikipedia. Or I've been known to flip to the end of a book. I know that's terrible, but I'll flip through it and then I can just read the rest of it without being stressed. So I just want to jump right in. Let's spoil it all right now. There's some big news for Green Ember fans. Sam, can you tell us the big exciting news for the Green Ember world?
I can, and I'll just flip to the end of this book, Helmer and the Dragon Tomb, and should I just read you the last part of it?
La 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 la.
I'm the opposite. I don't want anyone to tell me anything about the endings of anything. So, and I'm kind of an anxious person too. So, but yeah, exciting times. There are 11 Green Ember books out in the world right now that Zach and I have done together, and our 12th one is a one that's been looked forward to for a long time, been requested for a long time. A lot of people's favorite character is Helmer, this sort of waspy old, I don't know if wasp is, what is he? He's grumpy, gruff, grave, gravelly. He's a rough old character, and he's the old mentor to the young hero Pickett in the main Green Ember series. People have been asking for a long time for a origin story for him, and the answer is yes, it's happening. We're so excited to share this new story, which is an old story in a sense. It's a Helmer's origin story when he first started to learn to fight, because he's a farmer in the story, and he must become a fighter. And that's kind of the big news, and there is nothing else to say about it. That's it. It's a new book with Helmer, and that's all. Right, Zach?
You're forgetting a minor part that required an enormous amount of effort and requires enormous amounts of effort.
That's true. The other news, Amy, is that there is a video gamization, which is I think a term that Zach coined, a video gamization of the book, and we are so excited. We're not, huge video game people in our family, all the time. It's not the main focus, but this is such a cool game. It's a real hospitable throwback sort of a style game. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a story game, and kids love the Green Ember. They play in that world and run around with swords, and this is like a new way to play it. And it's a really fun, exciting way. So yeah, we're excited about we're doing a Kickstarter right now for it. I don't know when this is going to come out, Amy, but I think it's happening right now, and we're super. I'm so excited to share this new way to play Green Ember.
Okay, well, I'm just glad we could get that out of the way, get that teaser. I have more questions to ask about that, but I will save that to the end. But our family is super excited. Isaac's absolute favorite character is Helmer. He will still, to this day, even retelling the story multiple times, cry. Retelling parts of Helmer's story, has told me for a long time that he really hopes one day there's more stories about Helmer. So he has already been like, Mom, are there some chores I can do? Can I do some yard work? What can I do? I want to help with this Kickstarter. So he is definitely all in and excited. So we are really thrilled to see what comes next for Helmer and all of the Green Ember universe. But with the big surprise news, kind of taken care of, we can breathe easily. I did want to start by asking Zach a few questions. I'm so excited to have him join us today. I do have some questions for both of you, so we'll kind of go back and forth. But Zach, could you tell us a little bit about your kind of journey and history as an illustrator? If there were any particular books or illustrators that really impacted you, especially as a child, and then if you have any ideas about what you think is the most important thing as an artist to communicate as you illustrate a story and help tell that story?
Okay, I'll try to take those. So my history, so to speak, I always liked drawing. I like drawing a great deal. I liked animation a lot, and I liked illustration a lot. In particular, there's a group of illustrators from the early 1900s when sort of magazines were taking off. Maybe the golden age of illustrators kind of dovetails into they called them the slicks because of the paper they were printed on, the magazine illustration. And so there's an enormous, I like a lot of them, but the few that stand out, obviously, like I think Maxfield Parrish, I like how formal his compositions were. He was a very popular artist. Sometimes people call the Girls on Rocks paintings, but he would do sort of very, like, kind of, if you've seen his illustrations in Arabian Nights or there are a lot of fairy tales and stuff that he did, the type of, kind of Renaissance clothing but very well rendered, beautifully done. I also I like Charles Dana Gibson a lot as a book illustrator in ink. He didn't do cross hatching, but he would do hatching, which is parallel lines. So I like all that stuff. I guess maybe the effect though, my dad had these Time Life books that were like books on Vikings or Egyptians or whatever, and they would have these beautiful illustrations in them. I recall this one illustration of it was like a berserker, like this huge guy with a blonde beard and a big axe, and he's running into all of these enemies. And I just remember the impact that illustration had because he did not look scared. Everybody that was cowering behind their spear in front of him looked terrified. And I did not think that he was gonna win. But there was some resonance with that with that image about somebody who fights a fight without certainty of success, who fights a fight because his cause is stronger than his sort of chance of getting through without a scrape. Like that just captivated me. And I don't think it would be as effective if somebody had staged a photograph of the incident. There was something about a person spending a lot of time communicating that moment, and that there are things that permeate through the image that are hard to quantify what that is. There's something about the gift of one person spending a lot of time on something and giving it to somebody else. And I think that's what fundamentally illustrations are. There are other reasons AI illustrations aren't really hitting the mark in a lot of ways. In some ways they are, but I think one of the ways that they're failing is that it's not a person spending a lot of time with something and giving it to somebody else. And so there's a fundamental feature of hospitality that is diminished, I think, to some degree in that type of illustration. So to any rate, I studied theater and art in college. I worked at a theater called Sight and Sound in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in the cast. I worked at a company called Student Life in Birmingham, Alabama. I did that for a few years, a couple of contracts. I realized that all my friends were getting work experience, and I was just getting older because it wasn't something I wanted to do forever. And so I ended up moving back to Greenville, and I started doing illustration with some friends at a small company. It was a boutique kind of entertainment company. And then I did freelance for a while, illustrated textbooks, and then I worked in marketing. I would still do illustration with the marketing, but all of it, I guess the common thread is I like rhetoric and I like persuasion, and I like the pairing of images with words. I like book illustration probably more than I like painting as a standalone thing. I like the quick impact that images have, and I like how they are paired with the slower burn of linear text. And so those two things together it's peanut butter and jelly to me in a way that I maybe prefer to just straight painting. The rest of your questions, I'm forgotten. They were all good, but I talked too long.
No, I think that was what I was asking. Just like you really focused on that important part of the role of the illustrator as sort of taking all of this story and giving this moment, this impactful moment. And I'm curious then, you know, Sam, how did you and Zach get connected originally with the Green Ember series?
I heard about Zach. I read so Zach is, it's weird because he's great at marketing and he's great at illustration and art, which, you know, a lot of your audience would have seen so much of his art, which is just undoubtedly just fantastic. But he's a great writer. Like, and I don't say this with like trying to make some kind of false statement. So he's a better writer than me, and I think in so many ways, for sure. And I read something he wrote about Beowulf and courage, and because his company, the company he talked about, Portland Studios, was putting out a book, a version of Beowulf, and he was writing about it. And I was just like, this is the guy. Like, this is amazing. It just blew me away. And so that was my first exposure to him. And I had a friend who lived in Greenville who knew some of those guys, who was tangentially connected to their gang of artists. And I met one of them, Justin Girard, who's just one of the best out there, I think, just artist. He's fantastic. I met him and got to know him. He was a great guy. I think he was roommates with Zach. And I asked Justin to do some, to join us at Story Warren, which we were starting this sort of little band to help be allies in imagination to parents, and to, you know, think about children's literature and this sort of stuff, and come alongside parents who are trying to, you know, serve their kids really well and developing imagination, holy imagination. And Justin's like, well, I mean, that's nice of you to ask me, but I'm not the guy for that. Like, that's Zach. That's totally Zach all the way. So he introduced me to Zach, and Zach ended up illustrating a story for me in a local journal that I was doing. It was like a little humorous sort of a piece, and it was really, the art was incredible. And we just kind of connected at that point and started working together. And I was so thrilled to get him involved with the Green Ember. I was just like, that was a coup for me in so many ways. Not only just because the art was so good and so much better than what I was thinking about. Zach's vision for what everybody thinks of as the Green Ember art is Zach's vision, not mine. And it's so much better, and is mine now because I've stolen it from him. But it's like, that's the space it takes in my imagination. And I told these stories for a long time to my kids. So I had a vision in my head, and his is better. So it's just great. But not only that, but he was a constructive critic of the books, and particularly the first book, and in ways that really made it better. So he's just been a great friend and a great ally all along the way, and an incredibly talented artist, but just has so much more to offer. I'm really excited I mean, Zach's working with us now, and that's just been it's like a dream come true, an answer to prayer for many, many years for me. So I love having him around. It's like having, you know, it's like having the smartest person you know around, because it's exactly like that, actually. And so it's just been awesome to have him on the team.
Well, Sam, you touched there on, you know, you were telling these stories to your kids. You probably like had that kind of vision in your head of what the characters looked like. And then Zach reads your words, your story, and crafts this art that now is even better than what you had kind of imagined in your head. So I kind of wanted to ask both of you this question. So Zach, I'll kind of go back to you here. When you read a story, so you're reading words and you're starting to visualize things. Of course, you're taking the prompts from the author's original words, but what is that like to take a story, but then there's that part of you that's a co-creator with the author, right? Because you're taking not just the words, but you're creating this visual expression. So how does that, if you can kind of tell us a little bit about that process, or how much you then take from the text, how much do you like, that's what the text says, but I want to do my own thing, or what is that like?
So this is, I could be better at this, but I will say, reading Sam's manuscript, I have people sometimes come up who are, you know, self-published or who have a book, and I've done a few, and thankfully, though, I've been able to do books that I think are good and are interesting. And Sam's book, I didn't know what it was, because Sam, to that point, my understanding of Sam as a writer was mostly like jokey, kind of humorous kind of stuff that he had done at Story Warren. And I didn't know what this was going to be like. And I was really moved by the book. I thought it was really excellent, particularly the cloud. Once it got into the Cloud Mountain section, I thought, this is good. It's not just like doable. Like, this is a good book. And so I was moved by that. And I also thought that the nature of the book, I'll just tell you my thought process, and then I'll tell you where my weaknesses are still and where they are probably, if you look at the illustrations, you can see. But I thought that the effect of the book emotionally, that there were like really kind of spiritual themes, there were resonances that were spiritual, that were Christian, and the mended wood, and that, like, you know, a lot of the Cloud Mountain, a lot of the vision of community was church like, and so it was Christian. There was palpably Christian in its origin. I don't know if you can, I've got sirens going by, so sorry about
We're
that.
good. I can't hear him. It's fine.
So the
we'll just keep talking until they arrest you. I think.
So I've got like 30
the
seconds.
podcast first.
In my mind, I thought, oh, you know what this is like? This is what was surprising, is that this isn't jokey. This is important. And so therefore the illustrations should probably be serious. So the way that they should seem serious is to have, in my view, there was like illustrations with graduated tones felt more contemplative and serious than line heavy illustrations. And so I thought, if there's a way to maybe do some kind of like painting with graphite, or I saw these old Bambi layout drawings for the film Bambi that were done with these kind of smears of like really deep graphite, and I thought, oh, that's kind of that. Also, there was an artist, Sam Weber was his name. He did like these graduated tones for the covers of some magazines and stuff, and it felt like serious. So that was kind of my orientation. I thought, okay, maybe that's the way to go. The second thing about the rabbits, I thought, this feels classic, and I don't think they can feel like animated rabbits. I think they have to feel, they can't feel like Bugs Bunny or like a person with a rabbit head. It has to feel like a rabbit. And if it feels like that, it's going to hit some kind of, it's going to bring about some feeling of classic literature. And that would be to the benefit of the book, I thought. And then, so I also had this notion of the differences between the American Revolution and the French Revolution, which was completely off. And thankfully, I did some drawings of like these wolves with Jacobin caps and things, and Sam's like, no. This is castles and medieval, and
you can see a little bit of it. A little bit of it still survives in sort of the. I think there's a rabbit with a coat of tails and stuff. It does have a little bit of it survives.
Yeah, but even in the Hobbit, there are still kind of like the hobbits where I think they were like, it looks almost like 1700s garb in a kind of medieval setting. So hopefully, if there's any of that, it sort of still fits within the broader consciousness of that. But nobody's
gonna push you for a nice rabbit in a waistcoat, in a lovely waistcoat. It's totally fine.
So all that to say that the parts that I struggle with still are, I get a real like strong initial feeling from the text. And then that is a really strong image in my head. And sometimes it takes me a while, like I'll do the sketch and I'll remember and I'll kind of work on the sketch and do the thing. And then I'll consult the text later. And sometimes Sam will do a rewrite and it changes the text, or sometimes I just missed it. Like there's something really important that's not in, that I missed in the illustration. And so hopefully we catch most of those, but there might be a few. And also I have kids asking all the time, like, is this character right-handed or left-handed? And some of that's my fault, and some of that's Andrew flipping the image so that it fits better on the page. But most of it's my fault, I fear. So that's a weakness.
Well, I think I love hearing that that story of how you read the text and you get an initial, impression, but then it sounds like there's also some back and forth. So Sam, as you see an image that Zach creates and you're like, whoa, I love this. And then, or like, why does it have a French Revolution hat? How does that kind of work then, author illustrator, as you are seeing characters visually that you have previously only kind of created in your own mind?
Well, I've learned so much about books from Zach and about storytelling. I think I would have thought of, it's kind of funny because the story origin of sort of the first cover almost tells the opposite story of this, but I would have a bias generally for interior illustrations that would show something. And I would think like, this is the most important part, so show it. You know, that would be kind of my mind. And Zach was really good about saying that the illustration should anticipate the action. It should kind of drive you. He has this great humility of not necessarily saying like, you know, if you've seen a good band play together, and you can see a band that has a great guitarist or something, and then the great guitarist is basically, it's kind of like their sort of their thing is that he just shows off and he's playing, but it doesn't necessarily make every song better. But sometimes you'll see a band and they are so tight. It's just everything's fitting together, and this one's going down at the right moment as this instrument rises. And I think Zach has that sort of a very Christian, I think, approach to working together on something, to where he wants the illustration to serve the story and to serve the reader. And so we're kind of working together, and it's not a competition. He's not trying to say like, I'm going to draw the greatest, you know, okay, here's a scene, I'm going to draw the greatest drawing ever. It's got to serve the scene. So, and a lot of that is anticipating the action. So it should drive you back into the text. So it's not competing, which I love. That's a beautiful thing. And so I've learned a lot about that from him, and he does that so well. I love that. That's definitely a favorite thing. And I think one of the biggest challenges, I think, and probably, you know, is just time. Like a lot of times Zach's had been working, you know, another job. We've both been working. We've had small margins, or you know, we're trying to work through, and I'm trying to explain something. So that's where a lot of probably the confusion comes in. I sort of long for the day where we have, and I don't think it's happening yet, based on our meeting this morning about timelines. But you know, just like what we want is long time to like really sit with it. But the truth is, I've never done that with a book. I don't know what that would be like. Maybe it's not good. But it does feel like, oh, I'd love to just be able to sit here a little while and really let's think through. It'd be kind of fun to do that sometime with an illustrator. But we've always sort of been in the middle of deadlines, and some of that's valuable. But I think that's I think I'm amazed at what Zach comes up with like small margins. He's excellent at that, and my favorite thing is just how it cooperates with and his heart, you know, to not be competing at all, sort of about the vision or care for the audience, like the kids that read the books. Like it's just that is a privilege. I know that's not something he has to fake or that I have to fake. It's like it's just genuine love, and so that makes it really. It makes the purpose, the clarity of the meaning of the whole thing really clear. And it's sort of like and he's won, you know, arguments about like, should this character look like this, or I've won it based, and it's sort of like the final decision, like what's best for the story, best for the kid. It's not so much like so I love that cooperation. It's just been super fun.
Yeah, I love how I can hear from both of you a desire to serve the story, to be hospitable to those that you're sharing the story with. I know that's really important to both of you. And as you were talking, you know, like, wouldn't it be great if we could just like sit with the story and be together and like have this like quiet, restful period? I was thinking to myself, I was like, it will not be so in the Mended Wood. You know, there will come a day when all the stories are complete, and yet their story will continue. And that will be that there is yet a rest, right, for the people of God. But here on this world, man, it is messy. Telling the story and living the story is very messy.
It is, but that gives me new hope. Like that'll be a cool project, Zach. We were going to create some amazing books in the kingdom of God. Like that's good. I hope I mean, you'll probably have the opportunity to like illustrate something for Tolkien or something, and that'll be frustrating for me to be waiting in line. But I'll, you know, we'll have time.
We'll have all the time. Eternity. Well, I'm not sure who would be the best person to answer this question, but we noticed when we got our new Helmer card, and so we have some like little distinctions of like Helmer from the book, Helmer from the new video games. I wanted to ask, and whoever is best to answer this question, or both of you, you know, how do the nuances and needs of video game illustration differ from book illustration? They're two different mediums. I would assume there's two different needs. And can you tell us like a little bit about that process, that creative process, about the new look for Helmer, all those things?
I can take a crack at that if Sam, you want to fill any gaps. But so the jobs that the art does are completely different in a book than in a video game. So for
Hey,
the
Zach, back up
books,
a little bit. Can I just say back up a little bit and talk about the different kinds of art that go into a video game? If you can do that just a little more broadly and then
yeah.
drill down, because this is interesting. We were talking about this earlier today, and that might just be a good context for this thing. So if I
So
could just tell you
so
how to answer it, and I mean, I could text you a script if you want to just read
yeah,
from it.
yeah.
I think that would be helpful.
Well, I mean, we were talking earlier about sort of cultural artifacts generally, and some of them get pretty complicated. Like if you think about opera, you have music and you have singing and you have set design and then you have the symphony. All the disciplines represented within that, the conductor, and you've got this the story. It all has to come together and congeal. They're ingredients, and you want to mix them together in a way that's hospitable to serve, right? Video games are not unlike that. You have art that is like set design art, you've got the character design, you have the world, then you have all the sort of constrictions of memory. And so how can we take these trees and turn them around? It's one tree, but we want to make them look like it's a forest. And so how do we manage the memory, and can we take a rock and turn it around a bunch of times in the earth so it looks like they're different rocks, like all that. Then there's the storytelling that because Sam wrote both. He's working on, but and he could probably talk about the distinctions, the demands of a story that a video game has, the demands of the story that a novel has. Those are different too. Then you've got music and you've got score and you've got, hopefully people are feeling something emotionally from the game. Hopefully you're dramatizing something worth doing, the difficulty of doing good inside the game. All that stuff comes together. So the guys at Brazen, the folks at Brazen did a great job. They designed the characters for the needs of the video game. In video games, the primary purpose, I think you would say, is orientation of the character and the movement of the character. And so that has different requirements, so that you have to read things really quick. The silhouette has to be really clear. The eyes, so one of the tricks with like animal eyes are usually on both sides of the head in a lot of cases. And when you try to humanize them, you kind of bring them around. And sometimes they're in some compromised position so that you're kind of trying to have both worlds. And sometimes they just sort of, in a cartoon setting, kind of just move all the way to the front. We look at eyes more than we look at other features. And so eyes tend to express more, so they get bigger in things that have to read really quickly. So all of that stuff plays into the video game design and the video game character. For the card that you have with the sort of the
Hologram.
what do you call it?
It's a collectible lenticular card that it's actually in
Lenticular
the
card,
Kickstarter. We sent one early to Amy, who's one of our buddies. But yeah, actually those are in the Kickstarter. You can get those as part of that. They're like a little collectible, and it goes from I would think of it as almost like a hologram is what it feels like. You bound it back and forth, and it goes from the video game art to the book art.
And so the cover, I did the cover first, and then for the sake of the game, and like on our Steam page and everything, we have to have art for that. So I did the video game version of the character, and painted that in with the same kind of atmosphere, whatever. But it's but yeah, so those are different, and it was really fun drawing that character, because it's just, you're thinking about different things. Like there's a different language. So I would say that the primary need for our book, Sam mentioned a little bit already, if you have a character who has a suitcase that's going to explode, you don't want to draw the explosion. You want to draw either the moment after the explosion or the moment before the explosion. And because we process text at 60,000 times faster or I'm sorry, images 60,000 times faster than text, you don't want to flip the page and have the next 2 pages given away in the illustration. It's no fun. Nobody wants that. And so but you don't mind flipping the page and having a question mark come to you and go like, oh, that pushes you back into the text so that you're like more interested in that. So there are different jobs to be done if you're doing book illustration than if you're doing video game illustration. And what we want to do is we want to bring about a feeling of a classic book. We want to give shape to the characters so that they're easier to track. I've been longing for this. Somebody probably has it out there. I started War and Peace twice, but the names, I just got bogged down in the names. And I got bogged down in the names of the Brothers Karamazov too, but it's not but that was fine. I could manage, but I can't get like, I need a cheat sheet. And I thought it'd be really helpful if somebody did all the characters on a cheat sheet with their names that were illustrated so that I could associate what characters are having a conversation. But that's part of the benefit of a book illustration, is that it helps you to sort of keep the characters distinct and recognize who they are, and all of that type of thing is, it's sort of adding that. For the cover, I will say, Sam, just, I want to mention it because Sam did he nailed this. I wanted to do like a wolf, 2 rabbits, and there's like a log, and there's like a wolf coming over, and it was like, you know,
You're talking
rabbits
about
in
the
peril.
first book. You're talking about
the first cover for the Green Ember. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And I thought that it would fit within sort of the typical middle grade sort of, you know, characters in peril kind of things. And you're like, ooh, what's going to happen? And you read the book. And I included a drawing that was just an afterthought kind of drawing to push Sam toward the illustration I wanted. So I gave him 3 options. I think the 2 weren't very good, and the one I thought was good, hoping that he would choose. Of course, he chose, and I didn't like it all, which ends up being the cover of the first Green Ember book. And he said, I'm less interested in the moment of peril. I'm more interested in like a world that you're entering in, right? That this is a world that's it's not a poster, it's a window, kind of. And so so then it was like, oh, how do I make this drawing look good, or, you know, interesting to look at? And so I looked at a lot of Albert Bierstadt and a lot of sort of the Hudson River School artists who did dramatic mountains and storms and stuff like that. And in order to try to have some resonance that felt like, you know, it was epic and that. And so I stole heavily, and I would discourage you from looking at those paintings because the cover, you're going to see where I rip things off, and then it's going to look a lot worse after you see those geniuses, the work of those geniuses. But yeah, and obviously Sam was right about that. Like, I think in retrospect, like every year, I am more convinced that it was such a good decision. And it also goes back to the fact that the story exists in a reality that isn't exactly the game or exactly the book. It kind of, it manifests in these different formats, but it exists in a different place, right? And it can be adapted in these different cultural forms, but that it is something that exists kind of in its own realm. And who knows how else. So if there's a film one day, or if it has its own demands. And so the thing is to be true. And thankfully, Sam has been able to be invested in all of these different projects so that he can make sure that it stays true to the soul of what matters, and doesn't deviate from that. But I said I was going to take a quick, that was a long,
I love answer. It. So what I hear you saying is next up is the Green Ember, the opera, right? The cultural artifact.
That's what the kids want.
Rabbit ears. Yeah.
People think that it's a you know, a film or something like that, but no, it's everybody knows that we're doing the opera. Yeah.
Stretch goal.
Well, Sam, before we move to our quick rapid fire set of questions, do you want to address that question as a storyteller, sort of the difference of telling the story in novel form versus video game form?
Yeah, that's neat that Zach set me up for that, since I'm totally unprepared for that kind of a question. So thank you, Zach. The thing that stands out to me immediately, part of me is just like, I don't know. I've just tried to do my best. That's sort of the fundamental kind of a thing. I just like tried to think about what would be good. And really what I thought, what they were for me were sort of guardrails. They were kind of like, there was a fence. And because I knew I couldn't tell a story, probably because of the kind of game we were making, because we didn't have $1 trillion to invest in it. I couldn't have like 15 point of view characters that all had equal parts in the story. I probably couldn't even have 2, which suits, if you're trying to tell Helmer's origin story. Of course, he's going to be the focus. It was going to be a one-player kind of a game. We knew that, and that's suited. Okay, this will be a one point of view novel. It'll come everything will be from his point of view. There'll be other characters. There probably can't be 1 million, which is actually generally good for novels anyway, because as Zach talked about with the Russians, sometimes it's hard to keep track of. It's hard even if there are good names that are easy to pronounce. in your mind or whatever. So it's different, you know, that is a challenge, and that's actually a way of being hospitable to kids, is to not have. And I think, you know, what I've tried to do with the Green Embers is have more as we go on, but you know, once you sort of know them pretty well, you know Heather and Pickett pretty well. And I probably didn't do a fantastic job with that, but that was a guardrail. So I worked within that. And there's something about restraints or constraints or something about limits that is not, that doesn't sort of retard creativity. It sort of cultivates it. And I think that's true in a lot of areas of life. I think that's true in like morality. I think there's something, I think we think of, there's that great Simone Weil comment about how we sort of, and I can't ever get the words right, but we imagine evil, or like imaginary evil is very like romantic and exciting and cool and it's so awesome. And like imaginary good is so boring and oh my goodness, you know, that's such a cliche in storytelling. But like real good is amazing, beautiful, incredible, joyful, and real evil is sickening, dark and dank and depressing and different. So I think these limits, you know, can also be, you know, I think that I think about Chesterton's description of orthodoxy as being, yes, it's a fence, but it's a fence around a playground. And I love that. And I think that so I felt limited, but not in a way that it surprised me how little those constraints bothered me as a storyteller. And I enjoyed it very much. I can't look at this novel and think, oh my goodness, if I wasn't simultaneously, and the biggest problem was it was waiting. There weren't problems when I got to the end of the novel that I thought, oh man, if I really could have told a cool story here if I wasn't having to write this video game at the same time. Not a bit of that, not one bit. The only problem for me was that I delayed. I wanted to keep going, but I was waiting. Sort of, I wrote it in stages where I was like, can we do this? And, you know, kind of like being patient for the development of the game to make sure that I wasn't writing us into a problem. And sort of, so that there was some technical kind of a thing. So it slowed me down in a way that I would rather have just like kept going. But when I kept going, I don't think it changed very much. It was good. I probably could have just written it all. I didn't know that. I know that now. I probably would just go ahead and write the whole thing because I feel like I understood it better than I thought I would. So it was great. I love the book. I love the book so much. I'm so excited to share the book. And it's not like, oh, this is like a book that's like a video game. This book is like the other, it's so much like the other Green Ember books in so many cool ways. I think it's got the same sort of heroic heart, virtue. It's like my heart was really for boys, I think, in this book, like boys like Isaac and others. Like it's got a real clear vision of what it means to be a man, like a good man, and what it means to be a bad man. And that's in all of the books for sure. But this is really pronounced, and maybe it's even inspired by some of like the confusion of the masculinity in the world, like the sort of the ditches on maybe both sides of the road. And I love it. I think it's a good gift. Like I wish I had read it when I was a kid, and so I feel really excited about the gift that it is, and it was fun to write the video game. It really was an enjoyable experience.
You know, for all of my children, I think the stories that grip them are the ones that have, you know, true evil, true darkness, true heroes, right? Sacrifice, things that aren't just easy necessarily answers and fixes. And I think especially over the past year and a half, couple years for our family, like, you know, life is very hard, and darkness, this under the sun, you know, like in Ecclesiastes, under the sun is very difficult. But to be able to read a story where it acknowledges that really difficult part, but there's also hope, is so valuable. It's valuable for adults, but it's really valuable for children. And of course, you know, I think Isaac has told you this before, but you don't beat C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, but they're dead. So he says that you're his favorite living author.
Oh, and honestly, you know what else that tells me is there's still time. I mean, I'd say the chances of me overtaking those guys, it's got to be looking pretty good.
That's right. That's right.
That's not, I mean, someday I'll be able to fly like Superman and write.
Growth mindset.
I need to think positively.
Okay, so we're gonna move into a rapid fire. I'm not feeling real confident about y'all's ability to do rapid fire here, but we're gonna do our best.
You can give rapid fire questions. I'm not sure we'll be able to do rapid fire answers.
So here's my thing. This is like last minute, like less than 24 hours. Within like 12 hours, I had like a dozen questions. And I was like, whoa, I was not expecting so many people to be so excited with their questions. But I have questions from younger children all the way up to teens, some related to art, some related to books, some just related to random things they wanted to ask you. So we're going to start with a really important question here.
We can do it.
Which is, what is the D in SD Smith? We know it's Sam. And then, but I felt like it wouldn't be fair to only ask you to tell your middle name. So Zach has to tell his middle name first. But first, Sam, what's the D?
It is Dale. My middle name is Dale. I'm named after a woman named Dale, my mother's best friend and cousin when she was growing up. And the peace that she felt when she went to her house was like being in a peaceful Dale. That is the meaning of my middle name, Dale.
Love that. How about you, Zach? What's your middle name?
So I have two middle names. Zachary Thomas Gottfried Franzen. And when I was in high school, I used to add the first just to keep it going a little bit longer because it's such a long string of names. But the so I'm named from my dad, Thomas, and then my grandfather was a twin. When he was born, his brother died in childbirth, and his brother's name was Gottfried, and so that accounts for my second middle name.
I love that. Both of you have middle names with meaning. I think that's fantastic. All right, the next question is for Zach, and this is a question from one of my son's artist friends. And this young man asked, what method, I'm going to look this up because it was a very specific question. What method of smudging do you use to add such realism to your art?
Okay, so I have a lens cleaning, like a silk cloth for cleaning lenses that I got. You know how they give you like a little square when you get new glasses? And so I use that with, so sometimes it's just pencil and sometimes it's graphite powder. I have a, it's up on the shelf, but it's a canister of graphite powder. And sometimes I can dip that in and kind of smear it around a bit. And then there is I forget what they call these. They're tortillons or something. There's like some fancy word for it. But this is just, I don't know if you can see it, but it's basically like newsprint rolled up really tightly into a point. And it's the only purpose is to smudge stuff. So if you have to do it in a detailed way, then you use this. So I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's what I do.
That's perfect. No, that's great. Thank you. All right, Sam, back to you. I'm going to keep us going. Why did you pick Helmer as the hero of your next book?
Well, I love him, and ever since I found him sitting there at the Savory Den when the kids first walked in, and I was surprised to see them. I was as surprised as they were. I've been curious about him. Why did he become the way he became? That became more of subject of interest and plot in the books as they go on, and really culminating in Ember's End. And so I love him, and I have this insatiable curiosity for like back doors and side doors in stories, and I've explored some of that with Black Star of Kingston and that the old Italia series, and which gave birth from just the characters in the Green Ember saying this "my place beside you" oath. And I was just like, well, where did that come from? And okay, well, let's write a book about that. So I'm just curious about the backstory, and just the audience just loves him so much, and there was just such a hue and cry for it that I had to answer the call. And in this way, I'm sort of a heroic character. Apparently, that's how I'm casting myself in this story, the man of the people, you know, answering the desire.
Answering the call. All right, fine. Next question. Do either of you play any instruments? And there was a special question from one person who noticed there was a banjo playing on the Kickstarter page, and they wondered if either of you played the banjo.
I'll answer that. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I don't play the banjo. So I played piano growing up, and we don't have a piano here, so I don't play very much. But I have been blessed to hear Sam play.
So what do you play, Sam?
I can't play the piano. I play the guitar basically, and I play bass guitar and anything that's like a guitar, ukulele or something like that. Not very well, but I'm okay. I write songs. All the songs in the Green Ember stories are almost all of them have melodies to them. So I'm a little bit of a songwriter. the banjo is not a banjo. It's a banjitar. It's a cheating banjo. So I got it for my 40th birthday. I'm really grateful because I always wanted to learn to play the banjo, but I'm actually not that musical technically. So I don't know if I would ever have the time to sort of like dreamed of it, but it was like, you know, you have this guitar, you play like this banjitar, or a gitjo, and you sort of just play it with the same strings. You don't have to learn a new formation or whatever, and it kind of it sounds like a banjo. So it's a cheating way of playing the banjo, but it makes me happy, and I enjoy it when all the families, you know, getting together to do a little jam session or sing along.
Well, I can't wait to tell the young man who asked that question because he's learning the banjo. So I'm going to have to tell him there's a cheat. You're cheating.
No, don't tell him. Just let him keep it up. Stick with the real thing, and you can tell the difference. So there's still time for him.
Oh yeah. All right. So next question. And Zach, you can answer this one first. Which book did you enjoy illustrating the most? And then Sam, when it's your turn, I mean, you didn't illustrate. Which one did you enjoy writing the most? All right, Zach.
I think it was Ember Rising. I think I had the most time on that book. And so yeah, I think that was my favorite.
I wonder if you mean Ember Falls. Ember Rising.
Oh, you're right. I did not have the most time on Ember Rising. Ember Falls is what I meant. You're right. I'm sorry. I said the wrong title.
Fall Rise,
Ember,
you know, basically
the second book,
same.
a second in the main series. Yeah, Ember Falls. I'm glad you corrected that. There was not a lot of time in Ember Rising. In fact, I will say this, just behind the scenes. It takes so long to do all the smudgy drawings, and the timelines were so short that I shrank the size of the drawing that I did in order to try to shave some time so that we could get them all in.
And Ember Rising was much longer too. It was almost twice as long as Ember Falls. So Ember Rising was my favorite one to write, and I did have time, and I did take that time, and I loved that book. I loved writing that so much. But yeah, Ember Falls is, I think, the height of Zach's drawing. There's so many drawings in that story that are just, I'm flipping through it right now, and it's got so many beautiful drawings. I absolutely love it. So they're all great, but that one is my favorite for its illustration.
Okay, everyone who's listening or watching is, they're running to their bookshelves and they're like pulling out all the books. They're flipping through, trying to see what you guys are talking about. I love it. I love it.
Look at the cover. The cover of Ember Falls is just incredible. It's such a good cover.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
For sure. All right. Next question for you, Sam, is will you continue the Crystal Key mystery?
Yes. Lord willing. God giving me health and strength. I'm very excited to tell more Lost Tales. I envision that as at least a trilogy, and I've got the other two stories in my head, and I'm eager to work on them ASAP as possible.
Fabulous. All right. Next question. Zach, I'll let you answer this first. And although, we're talking about rabbits, but I don't know how illustrators work. So the question was, are any of the characters inspired by real people from either history or your life?
Not on the illustration front. I think I've done some costume research on certain eras and different things, so there's probably some tangential connection to real people, but that's not an intentional thing.
So you don't take your enemy from middle school and put them on the wolf face or something like that.
Yeah,
that's probably good.
Why does that rabbit have a Superman lunchbox? I don't understand.
Yeah, did some of the wolves in earlier drafts look like Napoleon? I think that's
How about you, Sam? Any people who've inspired specific characters, or are they just imaginary?
There are some, not very closely. And I think the only thing I did was I would take a name. I would never, there was never this person is like this person very much. There maybe be some traits but sometimes I would name somebody. Like there's a character that's in the hospital with Helmer at one point named Mitchell. I think somebody steps on his foot or something, but that was because my friend David Mitchell had stopped by that day, on his way back to his home in Virginia. And he visited, so I was just needed a name of a character. And there's some that are incidental like that, and then there's some that are more little tributes or homages. But it's pretty rare. Usually, it's pretty straight.
Thought you were gonna say my friend Mitchell stopped by and he stepped on my toe, and I was like, man, I'm putting that in the book.
No, that's a
Okay.
better story. I should start telling that.
Yeah, I like my version better. All right, so next question for you, Sam, is will you ever write a mystery?
So I have written a mystery, and it is in the Green Ember books, and it is called The Archer's Cup, and it is the third in the Archer trilogy, and I love that book so much. Like, spoiler alert, like there's no death in that book. It's not a combat book. It's got a little bit of something, but it's the most different of all the Green Ember books. It's a little mystery. It's a cozy little mystery inside this place, and uh, yeah, totally love that. And I don't know if it works as a mystery, but I really enjoyed that story an awful lot. I wrote that during when everyone was sort of locked down, and I was at home a lot. I was supposed to be on tour for Ember's End. We were supposed to go just like, I don't know how many, 36 different tour stops or something. We were supposed to go coast to coast, and it was going to be all year, and instead we ended up home after 6 days. And I wrote that book, and I love that book. Loved it. And it's a mystery.
Love it. All right, Zach, do you have any children who want to grow up to be authors or illustrators?
Sadly, I don't know about authors. I have one who likes to write, but she's not gonna. I'm trying not to root deeply for them to be authors or illustrators because I like books so much. I'm finding that my enthusiasm for that is maybe a little off-putting, and so I'm toning it down a bit, and we'll see what happens. But they all like to draw, and they like to tell stories and write. So who knows what'll happen? But yeah, I think they like storytelling.
Have you put Pancake Town? Pancake Town's out there, right? Is it on your social somewhere?
Yeah.
So he did a collaboration with was that just one of your girls, or so that you guys got to check out Pancake Town. It's so good.
Yeah, with Quilla. Yeah,
It's
that's
so
my
good.
oldest.
Awesome. And Sam, of course, I know that you and your son have co-written two of the Jack Zulu books, which actually somebody asked, like, what inspired you guys to write those? Because it's different from Green Ember, but equally amazing. So I know at least one of your children is interested in writing. Do you have any other children interested being authors or illustrators? And then kind of like go with that, like, hey, how was Jack Zulu? It was different, but also cool.
Yeah, yeah. I'd say 3 of my 4 kids are strong writers who it seems likely that they will do something with that in their lives. I don't know what. Josiah's obviously written a couple of books with me, and his older sister Anne is an incredible writer, wonderful writer. I'm so excited. She's a songwriter as well, and I'm not sure what she'll end up doing with that. But Josiah is also a strong a songwriter, and Nora is just starting to create stuff too. So I would say that, but I don't know if any of them are really. I don't think any of the other 3 are artists in the drawing sense. But Josiah Caleb, who wrote the Jack Zulu books with me, he's I thought he was going to be an illustrator. Zach spent a lot of time with him, and he's just like, he loved just learning from Zach and from Joe Sutphin and others. And I thought that was what he was going to do, was be an illustrator. And he's really one of those weird kids that like, that was a start for him, but he really into storytelling, filmmaking, but he's probably best at song. He's written just hundreds of songs, and that's really focuses a lot on music, and very musical, very talented in that way. So he's also involved in ministry. So I don't know what that kid's going to do, but the arts are a huge part of his life for sure. And I know one thing he's got to do is he's got to get us back to work on Jack Zulu 3 so we can get that one out. But yeah, the kids are, if the question is, are the kids weird like their dad? The answer is 100% yes.
I love to like, like Zach was saying, sometimes you try to brainwash your children about something and they're like, wait, you're too excited about that. I'm not going to be excited about this anymore. But the real great part of parenting is when something that is really exciting to you, your kid gets really excited about, and you're just like, have to be chill. Like, yeah, I mean, I kind of think that's nice too. Sure. And inside you're like,
you guys are out here playing some mind games at some major levels here. But it's funny that the 4th kid that's not as much into the writing as much is like a major athlete, which is a big deal to me. I love sports and stuff. So yeah, these kids have done, like, they're right in my world. Like I turn from one to the other, and it's like we're talking about the World Cup or soccer or the NBA or basketball or going to shoot or something, and the other person's talking about the Beatles or history or theology or writing songs or movies and that's like, I am just delighted. And of course they're older too, so they're older kids. Half of them are adults. So I love this stage. I love, like, they're like my best friends, in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm still dad. I'm still got some, authority and whatever. But I love, yeah, fatherhood is the best. I've often said it, that it's not an obstacle to, like, sort of your creativity. Like, it is kind of the way. That's definitely in the way for me with the Green Ember and other storytelling. So it's not that's another one of those constraints that I think a lot of artists are like, oh, if I didn't have to deal with all these kids, maybe I think, like, I would lean it, like, that's the way. It's not the obstacle.
Yeah. I like to say that, like, parenting, especially being a homeschool parent, is the best hard thing I do. Like, it's super, super hard, but it's also the best. Both are true. Both are true. Okay, couple more really quick questions.
We've been so fast. We're doing great. I know
we are really rocking this. We are winning. We are winning this podcast.
We're getting tired of winning here. It's been amazing.
Okay, Zach, do you have any pets?
We have an outdoor cat. We have 2 outdoor cats. So the one sleeps on the back porch in the winter. So kind of a pet. We do feed them. So I guess, yeah. But they don't come inside, and I had a dog growing up, and we're a lot more affectionate and possessive of it, and so it doesn't feel like that. So I'm not sure on the spectrum of pet ownership where they fall, but we do have animals in our yard that we feed, and we name them as well. So
perfect. I mean, my kids have named the neighborhood ducks because they don't have pets, and they're very bitter about this. But I told them they just really need something to be able to complain about me about later on in their life. But we named the neighborhood ducks. It's fine.
Can they distinguish the ducks from one another?
They can. Yeah, there's
Wow.
like very distinct markings on them, and they're like different breeds of ducks, and
Okay.
I don't know. They have very specific names.
I think what you do with the ducks is, I think if you touch the first 10 or so, and then I think the 11th one's probably like a goose, just based on just sort of the calculations I've done in my childhood. Yeah. I think that's usually how it goes.
I think so. How about you guys, Sam? Do you guys have any pets?
I 100% resonate with your story, Amy. Like, no, and some of the kids are not super happy about that. We got like some significant allergy kind of situation, so having a cat in the house would be murder. Probably a dog too. So no, we don't. But there's prayers. There are prayers going up from certain sectors of my home, and then parents that are praying against it. So it's a real spiritual warfare.
It's a real battle. Yeah.
And we have animals everywhere, like outside. We have deer and rabbits, of course. And
I mean, you wrote a book about animals. Why do they need pets? You wrote a whole series about about animals.
It is. People think I'm like the rabbit wrangler or something, that I'm the rabbit expert, but they were just there when I was telling a story. That's kind of what happened. So it was providential. I call myself a rabbit Calvinist because I didn't choose the rabbits. The rabbits chose me. So.
Perfect. Well, that actually really quick. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Zach.
No, I'm sorry, I'm derailing, but I'm wondering if, like, homeschooling is a difficult, good thing that you do, and it probably changes you. It gives you something to react to. It helps you grow. I wonder if there is something like that with pet ownership. Like, well, how does it augment you in a good way? I had one recollection of our cats. Well, we have moles that dig in our yard, and that's why we have the cats. But one of the cats got a hold of one of the moles, and it was really small and looked like a baby mouse, kind of, or small. And it was heartbreaking for my 9-year-old, who I found outside with this wounded, trying to feed it cheese, like a cheese stick. And it died, sadly. And so we needed to bury it. And so we put it in a can, and we dug a hole. And as we buried it, we prayed, and the church bells, there's a church not far from us. It was at 6 o'clock, like the hymn started playing while we stood there over the grave of this mouse. And I thought, had we not, the chain of connections, something about having a cat created this scenario whereby we had to bury this mouse at a time when, you know, that was moving for my daughter. I'm sure she's going to remember it for a long time. And it was actually strangely moving for me as this sort of the church bells were ringing. And I thought without, you know, the sort of first domino of having a cat, none of that would have happened. So maybe there is a case for pet ownership that's broader than I've considered before.
That's a
So you're
story.
really judging me and Sam
Yeah.
for not having
I
pets.
feel I love that you, Amy, took away from that deeply emotional, moving story. You're immediately like, so are you trying to criticize me? Is that what's going on? Are you asking if my kid is socialized? What's
I mean,
happening?
I can't let my kids listen to this episode now.
Well, the worst thing will be the next year when we come out with the book, you know, from Story One's next picture book of Zach standing around as the bells ring and the children are crying and everybody starts adopting baby moles or whatever, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, I'm gonna look at my sheet really quickly because I got distracted by the very moving story. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
The very moving story. Didn't mean to jump
Very
down there. Okay.
judgmental music.
I heard you say real quick, and I thought I got to put the stop to that. That can't.
Yeah, no, we can't move quickly. Okay, so I have two last questions here in this section, and then I have a few questions about Helmer for myself. So I know, Sam, you have shared this story other places, but someone did want to ask what sparked your original Green Ember idea. So if you want to share that story.
Sure. I mean, I kind of alluded to it a moment ago, but I was on the porch with my daughter, Anne, who's now 22. She was just a little toddler at that time. She had a little brother, Josiah, and then we had a baby at some point later. So if you can see some connections there between an older sister, younger brother, and then a baby in that family. That was our family story. We were on the porch, and I used to tell her a bunch of different kinds of stories. And there was just kind of like story time. We were sitting on the porch swing, and I think we may have moved to the steps down to the yard where there are rabbits playing. And I just decided, hey, I'll just start a new story and I'll tell you about this older sister rabbit. And that was the day that it began. I don't know what day that was. I wish I did now, but it just became sort of an ongoing serial alongside some others. I had one called The Girl with Golden Wings, one called Chance the Dog, and there were just a few different ones, but that one sort of won out and became the story for her and for her younger brother. The two rabbits were initially called Hannah and Joe, after my kids Anne and Josiah. And eventually, when it got a little more like serious, I thought I got to change their names because I don't want them to be thinking all the time like, is he telling me that I'm a whiner, or is he? I didn't want them to be thinking about that all the time, so changed them to Pickett and Heather, and that's where the Green Ember began. So that's actually interesting if you think about the video game, because Zach was alluding to this earlier. Like, these are iterations. So even when people kind of get upset, oh, that's not what Helmer looks like, if they've got upset about it. It's like, well, the video game, as Zach explained, has different needs, and this is an iteration. And I'm comfortable with an iteration like that. I'm comfortable with the differences. There's going to be some differences between the game and the book, and that's okay. But I'm fortunate enough to be involved heavily in both. And I was entirely involved in the first iteration, which was these out loud stories. It did change some when I wrote it down as a novel at the request of my kids. And it wasn't perfect. My goal wasn't, let me recapture every moment that I told, exhausted from work or doing different kind of a thing, or, I'm sad one day, or this, and I'm trying to just tell a story to entertain and delight and challenge my children. And my goal when writing the novel is I'm going to write a great novel. I'm going to write the very best novel I can for them. And it's going to take the best of our time together. And it's going to have the same climax in so many ways, telling the story. And it's going to be faithful to what we experienced together. But I want to try a good novel, and there are different needs. And Zach, read the first part and said, you know what, this needs more causal connections. This needs to make more sense together. And I had another person say that this part's too long. And I said, okay, good. I want to write a good novel, so I need to write a good novel. So it's a similar kind of a thing when it's an iteration. So even the novel itself was an iteration of an earlier thing. So the video game is an iteration. The film and TV will be an iteration. They'll have different needs. It will not be, contrary to what a lot of fans want, an exact replica of the book. It just won't. And that wouldn't be a good film. It wouldn't be a good opera to kind of do that. It wouldn't be a good, so there's different needs. And I think that's really important. And I'm excited about this opportunity to do it in a new way, a new iteration with the video game.
Yeah, because it stays loyal to the heart of the story
Yes.
and to the themes while also being expressed in a new medium, which is going to be different. It's not like better or worse, it's just different. And so keeping that heart of the story the same and yet being able to have the freedom to explore this new medium, I think is really exciting.
It is. And I would say it's rare. It feels rare. Like I won't make the film and didn't make this video game. I'm not capable of that. But to be present and to be a pretty good sound mind and to be creating it alongside, it feels like such a privilege to be allowed to do that. And I think it's a cool opportunity for people who love the Green Ember. Like this is, you're not I didn't pass this off to somebody. I'm not loaning out somebody I'm not licensing my IP or something like that. That kind of thing usually happens in situations like this. But this is, I'm all over this. I'm all up in this stuff and I'm working hard. And like, that's a privilege for me. And I feel a real intense stewardship, a call to steward this property really well. And so that's fun. I think that's cool, a cool, rare opportunity. And I hope that I hope the audience kind of gives it a chance.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one of the questions that people had, which I feel like we really can't answer this question because it would spoil things for people who haven't read the series. So I'm going to ask the question in honor of the child who asked it, but maybe you can just answer so they wanted to know what was your favorite Green Ember spoiler moment, like your big plot twist kind of thing. But I feel like telling the plot twist would really ruin this discussion. So maybe you could just tell the favorite plot twist. You could tell which book it occurred in, if either of you have a favorite plot twist.
I have one. I don't know. Do you have one, Zach? Or you just give it some thought. Just pray about it while I talk. So okay. I would say probably happened at the end of Ember Rising, I would say. And I had that one in my back pocket for a while. And I think a lot of people were excited about that. And I will say that for those kinds of things, like interesting things that the deepest fans, like I don't want to keep pointing back to this new book, but one thing I love about this new book, and I hate spoiling anything, but like if you read this, you're gonna, and you're a big Green Ember and you like love the other books, you're gonna find so much resonance, so much, so much rhyming. There's a lot of rhyming in these stories, and kind of like if you read, this is really stupid to compare to the Bible, but if you read sort of John, you're going to have all these like, oh my goodness, this is Genesis just all the way through, and so much of the Gospels you're just going to have the Pentateuch just screaming at you all the time. And you don't have to be a Pentateuch scholar deeply familiar with Pentateuch to enjoy reading John. It's great. But if Genesis is in your heart and you're like, you come to John, oh my goodness, it just blows your mind. But I think if you have Ember's End in your heart and you read this Helmer book, you're going to be like, whoa, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's neat. Oh, there's going to be several moments like that a new person's not going to need. And it's going to be fine. If that's the first book they read, it'll be great. But the old people, it'll be like, they'll smile, they'll snicker, they'll be, oh, wow, cool. And I love that. I love sticking that stuff in there. It was really fun.
Well, that's perfect because that segues so well. It's like you do what I was going to ask next, because I wanted to ask, if you need to have read all of the original Green Ember series and all the side books that you've written already in order to enjoy the new Helmer book. But it sounds like you're saying if you have, you're going to get all these Easter eggs and have a deep experience and kind of be like, oh, I get that illusion, right? I get that. But for someone who is new to the series, would they still be able to enjoy Helmer's story kind of as their first introduction?
Yes. And that's one of the constraints I put on myself as far as writing the book and the video game. I want this to be a front door. This isn't you're joining in halfway. I don't know what's going on here. No, you can come right in here 100%. You're fine. It's a great entryway. And I hope it is. I hope people will read this and then read the other Green Ember books. I hope it's a gateway for them for lots of reading. But yeah, you don't have to, you're not missing. I mean, you're sort of missing something in a sense, but you're not missing anything that you need to enjoy this book as an adventure or this video game. You can just go straight into it and you can play the video game. That's fine. And then read the book. You can just go, you don't have to start with something else. You can start right here.
And we have time because we are supporting the Kickstarter now this month, and then we have a little bit of time. I mean, summer is a great time to get some of the old books, listen to the audiobooks.
I would do nothing else personally. I mean, this is my advice. I would do very little else. Just try to stay focused on the main things there.
All right. So I know that you answered this question on the Kickstarter page, but I think, parents maybe are hearing oh, video game, but what about creepy internet people? So are children going to have to deal with creepy internet people with your new video game?
No. No. This is the I will say this, we spoke to two really world-class kind of performance marketing experts, and they both said, so you're doing a game, so this is a mobile game with it's free mobile or cheap mobile with ads, right? Or it's free mobile, cheap with microtransactions. And we said no. And they said, and this was interesting. They said, well, that's not the typical way. That's an atypical way if you want to make money on a game, right? And the model is that you charge people on ads and you charge people through microtransactions, and people get used to mobile games that are cheap or easy, early, easy entry, and then they get sort of, whatever. That's not what this is. And so the result is it's the financial modeling is different, the way that we're paying for it, and we're taking, but the trust we have is that parents don't want to subject their kids to ads that are inappropriate or bad, or or microtransactions or chat features in games or any of that kind of stuff. So none of that is in this game. This is a game that is a standalone game with a beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't go on forever, and you just sort of bill and bill and bill, and you don't have to pay to win. It's not any of that stuff. So that's one of the and that was early on. I mean, I think Sam and Josiah and Andrew made the decision that they would take a harder route because it was a better route for kids. They weren't going to subject them to a lot of predatory practices. So I think we're proud of that, and hopefully there are enough parents who are pleased that will sort of join the cause and be enthusiastic about that kind of a game.
Yeah, well, I know as a parent, I really appreciate that. Again, it goes along with what we've come as parents to trust and appreciate from the story telling, but also just the whole business, I guess, aspect of it too. Not feeling like the children are products to be mined for, but to care about them. And so I do appreciate that, and I appreciate that perspective on this upcoming game. So,
well, Amy, can I just say,
please.
I think about you, I think about Isaac, when we do this kind of thing, and I think about other people, other moms and dads and kids, and there a lot of them have names to me. I've met thousands, and we've gotten letters from tens of thousands of kids, that is a weight of stewardship. It's neat too, because it's not like that. That was the heart from the beginning, and so it's not like that. And all the meetings of an Isaac along the way, or an Amy along the way, it's just been a reinforcement, and it's been an encouragement to kind of stick with that stewardship. But that's never in play for us to make a game that was predatory, or to not work very, very hard for it to be hospitable and unusual. And that has, like Zach said, that's brought some market challenges, honestly, and means that we need the Kickstarter to succeed probably in a big way for it to really work, or it to be sustainable. So that's just a reality, but that is a bit of a harder path that we've chosen intentionally, and that's never been in doubt. And like you said, that's from the very beginning, because these stories were stories I told my kids. So everything was sort of oriented around that very natural affection, the love that a father has for his children, and the stewardship that you feel about protecting them and caring for them and protecting them in ways that doesn't mean not exposing them to any danger or any kind of difficulty kind of thing. We do that as good parents. We do challenge them and let them be challenged, let them go through difficult things, even these vicarious stories that are, scenes of death and challenges that children are going to go through. We're going to face, sometimes sooner or later, very, very difficult things in life, as you guys know very, very well. So I think about that. I think about that responsibility, and that makes me even thinking about pulling the punch or making a story that's like so safe, where the right people, the good people, they do the right thing and everything works out for them and they don't have any challenges. And shouldn't you do the right thing too? And maybe that's okay for like a really little kid or something, but there's a cost, there's a danger with telling that kind of a story to a kid like Isaac, a kid who's living this heroic story that has real pain and real fear. And, so I feel such an intense responsibility that I will, we'll go down, we will die, with that, in that fight. Like we are not going to compromise on that. And it's kind of been, we've started the Kickstarter now, and we've gotten a lot of people saying, like, I see, like what you said, like that I see you and I trust you. I see what you're doing. I see your heart for this. And maybe we're not the biggest video game family, but I totally get what you're doing here, and that, we're with you. There's been a little bit of kind of like, I can't believe you're doing this. Why would you do this? Why would you do this? We're trying to protect our kids from screens, and so, and it makes me, like, part of me is like, oh, I kind of understand that sensibility. And it's like, okay, it's not for you, and that's fine. There's another part of me I'm a little bit riled up, as in, like, for instance, that comment, one of those comments came on from in Instagram, which I'm guessing a screen was involved, that in creating that sort of kind of a thing. And so there's a little bit of, like, me that wants to say, like, it's not about, I mean, you can make a choice to say, like, we're not having any screens, or we're not having, and I respect people who draw really hard lines in difficult spaces for a lot of different reasons. But if we're going to interact, if we're going to have these in some ways, like, is there an opportunity to do a redeeming act in this venue? And there are so many kids there, and sometimes there's a little bit of a hint of snobbery in the reaction of, like, well, we're going to read our really high, or high quality literature. And I get that. I respect that. I respect it if your kids are, like, reading Shakespeare or reading the Iliad, but this isn't like we're going to take the Iliad out of your child's hands and put a video game into it. That's not the choice that necessarily, I mean, maybe that actually needs to happen for a kid, that all they're doing is reading, these great books all the time. Like, they probably need to go outside and, smell the roses and get hit in the face with a ball and maybe play a video game for a little bit. Maybe that would be good. But you're talking about kids, that's like life for so many people. And so this could be an avenue of light, a generous gift, a hospitable gateway to things that they're not going to be exposed to otherwise. So I feel pretty passionate and a little bit defensive. Like, I'm almost, like, used to this having allies like you, Amy, and, like, thinking about people like you guys, and, like, to sort of understand our heart. And when I don't know, when the intentions are questioned, and maybe I hope it's not my pride or my ego, but I feel a little bit, like, defensive, like, no, we're doing something hard. We've made some really hard choices to fight for the kids in this special way. And that doesn't mean that everybody's got to jump on board, but, like, try to see what we're doing. It is from a heart of love and service, and that's, like, beyond a doubt. And we have a lot of energy for that.
Yeah. Well, we are very excited to support this endeavor. I'm going to totally put the link to the Kickstarter here in the description, whether you're watching the video or listening. Also going to set up a redirect so you can go to humilityanddoxology.com/Helmer. If you're just listening, that should be easy. So humilityanddoxology.com/ Helmer, Helmer, and that will send you to the Kickstarter so you can support this. Support Helmer, really. I mean, Isaac just needs Helmer to come to life. Actually, he was like, so are there going to be more Helmer stories? Will there be, Sam? Will there be more
I
Helmer?
hope so. If yeah, that's the aim.
Okay, so support Kickstarter now, and let's have more Helmer in the future.
Do it for Isaac. That's all.
Do it for Isaac. Okay, so that's like a logical fallacy. I just did logic again with my fourth child. It's my fourth time teaching. I think that was an appeal to emotion, but you know, I mean, sometimes you just got to use a fallacy, you know, for a good cause. Guys, I am so thankful you both came on and took the time in this busy season with the Kickstarter and writing and artistry and all of lifing. So please let everybody know where they can find you and your work all around the internet. Zach, where can folks find you and your work?
Oh, I have a Instagram. My wife keeps up with it sometimes. I need to get back involved, but I started logging out. So I've logged in more in the past week than I have in the past 2 years. So maybe I've got some art that's stacking up that I'll probably put on there in the next bit. But probably Instagram's the best place to find art. Yeah.
Perfect.
He's a big time influencer there. But as you can hear, he puts a lot of energy into it, a lot of buzz. He's on fire there on the.
He's all about the social media life. How about you, Sam?
STSmith.com is you can find all my stuff there and link to the Kickstarter and to the socials wherever you are. I'll probably get some kind of goofy presence there. But yeah, STSmith.com.
Well, also I should say this, maybe if I can save that my terrible answer. Probably the most work that I will have available to see will be in the marketing materials eventually coming up for the book. So buy the book.
Wait, have we said the book's title yet? See, I don't even know. Wait, it's Helmer and the Dragon's Lair. Tomb.
I'm just pleased that Zach's finally getting it right because you know, in a lot of the mock-ups he wrote it wrong about 50 different ways. So yeah, it's good to hear him getting it. It's a Green Ember, Helmer and the Dragon Tomb. So yeah, we're very you're going to see some really cool stuff, and you wait till you see Zach did some very funny things that your audience particularly will love that we're going to share. It may be out by the time this comes out, but oh my goodness, I'll just say some funny video gamization stuff with some beloved properties such as Pride and Prejudice and Anne of Green Gables, which will delight, I'm sure, your audience.
Oh, I'm super excited. Okay, so I'm going to put in the link for the show notes for this. Link to the Kickstarter. Go support Helmer. A link to you guys' stuff so folks can follow and see art and see stories. And I'm just super excited to see all that comes out over the next few weeks as we work together to make this story come to life. And then in the months ahead as you continue to tell good, true, and beautiful stories. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
It's been so much to us. We really appreciate your friendship.